Yeah. Good morning. I'd like us to kill three birds with one stone. Let us start with the y is equals to x plus 1 equation. Now in this equation, I'm gonna introduce three ways so that I'll make you understand how we solve this. So ngamanye amagama u-x uyazenzela njengokuthi kule uzothi okay u-x maka u-0 maka u-1 maka u-2 noma awu-3, then let's deal with integers. So ngamanye amagama lana they would give you the rule and tell you to use integers between -3 and 3 inclusive, kusho ukuthi uzomfaka u-3 uzomfaka no-3. Isebenza kanjani lento la? Asiqale ngo-0. Lana ku-equation uzothatha u-0 umfake as an input la kuno-x khona, because these are the x values and these x values uyazifakela njengoba ngisho ukuthi ama-inputs. So masithatha u-0 simfaka la, sithi 0 plus 1, sizothola i-answer eku-1. Sithathe u-1 simfake la kuno-x khona, sithi 1 plus 1, sizothola i-answer ewu-2. And this becomes our output eku-y, because i-input yethu masifaka ku-that rule we get i-output eku-y. Masithi 2 la kuno-x khona sifaka u-2, sizothi 2 plus 1 it is 3. I-answer yethu siyibhala lapha ku-y. Masithatha u-3 simfaka laphayana sithi 3 plus 1, i-answer yethu ye-output kuba u-4. Now it's either you do it kanjalo as that table njengoba injalo, or you then do it ngale ndlela ekungukuthi to your left there's i-input eku-x in this regard, on your right kune-output eku-y, in the middle kune-rule eku y is equals to x plus 1. Iyafana lento ngale ndlela siyenze ngayo, but then ufuna ukubonisa umehluko mawuyibhala yenza sure. For instance, if i-input yakho ku-3 uzofaka u-3 lana so it's 3 plus 1, u-y wakho u-4 ne, so that ziyahambelana. Mawufaka u-3 u-y wakho u-4, mawufaka u-2 lana u-y wakho kuba u-3, mawufaka u-1 la kuno-x khona u-y wakho kuba u-2. Let's try and zoom this in. U-y wakho kuba u-2. Mawufaka u-0, 0 plus 1 is 1. Mawufaka u-1, because mawufaka u-1 la uzothi -1 plus 1, i-answer yakho kuba u-0, because they cancel each other. Mawufaka u-2 lapha ku-x, answer yakho kuba u-1. Mawufaka u-3, answer yakho kuba u-2. So sizobuyela kuleya yokuqala. Mawuse uno-x and uno-y kanje, they become ama-coordinates. So uqala ngo-x, mase kuwama-coordinates kuzoba u-3 is to -2 ama-coordinates now. So asiqhubekeni ke siye drawa i-diagram out of ama-coordinates. So abonile ama-coordinates ne. Masicala lana kuzoba negative 3 and negative 2. This is your x value and your y value. This is your x value and your y value. So negative 1 is going to be negative 2 is to negative 1. Negative 1 is to 0. 0 is to 1. 1 is to 2. 2 is to 3. And 3 is to 4. These would be your coordinates. Maswabhala ama coordinates njengale ngishilo negative 3 is to negative 2 sizoyibhala kanje. This is your x value and this is your y value. Negative 3 is to negative 2. When and where do we use this? We use this masenza a Cartesian plane, meaning we plot those coordinates. Now, sesiyiplotile a Cartesian plane yethu, layer point ka negative 3. Okay, ithi ngiqale ngichaze a Cartesian plane. These are your x values. These are your y values. U0 lo phakathi nendawo is shared by both your x values and your y values. Kahle kahle, this is just a number line. So, from ku0, as it is 0, to the positive x values, you space them depending. Okay, okwamanje we've spaced them 0, 1. Sorry about that. 0, 1, 2, 3. We need a space between the numbers because from 0, there's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, then 1. It's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, 2, 2.1. So you will not always get ama numbers njengalawa phezulu ama coordinates ekungukuthi all the numbers whole numbers. Excuse me. You will also get fractions. So fractions are numbers between these numbers. Now, I want you to notice something here. Okay. I want you to notice something. It is important when you do your Cartesian plane that ibe spacing sakho sibe way spacing sakho sibe consistent. Now, what I've done here, 0, this is 0, 1, 2, 3. Spacing summing is spacer according to lama lines. But mangifika la, ngamabomu ngiskipile that ngaifaka lana. As you can see, because of that, can you see how skew a straight line sum singakon? It's no longer a straight line. But mawubheka kule graph engapha, I made sure ukuthi spacing sum of my negative y's is the same as the spacing sum of my positive y's. And I tried to make sure ukuthi spacing sa negative x's is almost identical to spacing sa my positive. That line makes sense than the line I have this side. So I just wanted you to note how important it is to make sure ukuthi spacing sakho si right. Kufana noma uzo space uthola ukuthi you have larger numbers, mhlambi instead of uthi 0, 1, 2, you count ngabo 2, it's 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Make sure ukuthi you count ngabo 2 all around so that spacing and plotting yakho izoba right. Okay, as I said ukuthi we have that point negative 3 is to 2. I always start mina with my x value. So my x value is negative 3. Then I go down to where y is negative 2. When I get there, I actually just put a dot to make sure first ukuthi zi equal, because it's a they are straight. That's what I want to say. So that point there is negative 3 is to negative 2. That point there is negative 2 is to negative 1. Now, I want to say something about this point. Every time you get a point that is on top of a set of x's, or whether it's the x-axis or it's the y-axis. So if it's the x-axis that a point is on top of, which means the value of the x-axis or the value of x at that point yile number leyo elapho, kusho ukuthi u-x wakho kuleya point u-negative 1. Because ayinayo ehambelana nayo like u-negative 1 and negative 2, it's just on top of the line, kusho ukuthi u-y wakho u-0. So this is your x-intercept. Lena isho ukuthi u-x wakho u-0, that's why u-y iphezu kwa-y eku-1. So this point mawuyifunda, because masenza ama-coordinates sicala ngo-x, u-x wethu u-negative 1, sizothi negative 1 is to 0 because iphezu komline waka-x. Lana isho ukuthi u-x uye oku-0 and then u-y wethu u-1. So u-x wethu u-1 okuyi-input, u-y wethu u-2. U-x wethu u-2, u-y wethu u-3. U-x wethu u-3, okay. X wethu u-3, u-y wethu u-4. So mayifunda kanjalo ama-coordinates. And what we've done lana, kulula ukuwayenza ngale ndlela lana esiwayenze ngayo. Mina nginifundise ukuthi ukwazi ukwenza i-y intercept, ukwazi ukwenza i-x intercept. Kule table lena ukwenza kwakho i-x intercept ne-y intercept kulula, because ku-x intercept uvele uye la u-y ku-0 khona. It means you make your y 0 to get your x intercept. Kusho ukuthi i-graph yakho iyothinta i-x-axis where x is equals to negative 1. Mawuya ku-y intercept, you make your x to be 0, and then i-output yakho kuba u-1. Kusho ukuthi i-graph yakho iyothinta u-x u-y where y is 1. So ngamanye amagama uyakwazi ukwenza this graph without doing all the other numbers, with just doing your y-intercept and your x-intercept. It means then you will get lama coordinates lawa, and from these coordinates you can then draw your straight line, because njengoba uzohlanganisa only these two, you can then extend it and then extend it that side. Ne? But into engifuna siyifunde namhlanje sorry about that, ukuthi lezi zinto zibonakala ngathi ziyafana. The first equation is y is equals to x plus 1. Le engapha ka right is y is equals to negative x plus 1. If we look at amagraphs wakhona, lena is isuka from right to left. Lena isuka from left to right. Why kwenzeka lokho? Kwenzeka lokho because lana we have a positive gradient, lana we have a negative gradient, ne? And then mawungabheka amalokhoza wethu awafani. Lana where x is 0, y is 1, iyafana nalaphayana. But where x is -1, y is 2. Where x is -2, y is 3. Where x is -3, y is 4. Whereas ngale akufani. Mawunganothisa le number lezi 43210 are the same numbers lana 43210, but reversed in terms of them being on the left and on the right side. And then 0, -1, -2, and then 0, -1, -2. It's almost the same set of numbers, but zireversiwe because of negative gradient. Now, gulena, okay. It's a bit difficult. Okay, gulena. I want you to pay attention. I started gule rule y is equals to -x plus 1. Mau substitute, especially the negative numbers. Remember, there's already a negative there. So I start to -3 simfagela. There's a negative, which is that one that comes with the rule, but our x is -3. So you then put the -3 inside the brackets. A negative times a negative is a positive. So that's why laphansi uzoba no 3 plus 1. 3 plus 1 is equals to 4. Now we go to the second one, -2. There's a negative that came with that rule, which is there. And then we substitute -2. A negative times a negative is a positive. That's why when you get here, you have a +2 plus that 1, which is equals to 3. Then here we're substituting -1. A negative times a negative is a positive. That's why there you then have 1 plus 1, which is 2. Now, when we come to 0, anything times 0 is 0 plus 1. That's why you then have a 1 there. When you substitute 1, please do still put this under brackets so that you don't forget that it's not a -1 that you've substituted. You've substituted a +1, but your rule comes with a negative sign there. So a negative times a positive number is a negative number. -1 plus 1 is equals to 0. Remember, our 1 is positive. That negative, which is there, comes with the rule. Then our 2, it's that negative that comes with the rule. And then 2, which is -2 plus 1, which is -1. When you put 3 there, it's going to be -3 plus 1, which then becomes -2. Like I said, when I made this, I made sure ukuthi ngiyenza ngale ndlela to show you how important it is ukuyenza such that uyakwazi ukufunda ukuthi okay, if my input is -3, my output is 4. If my input is -2, my output is 3. If my input is -1, my output is 2. If my input is 0, my output is 1. Masifika la, when your output is 1, it's very difficult to read what your output is. Unlike here, when your input is 0, your output is 1. When your input is -1, you can simply go and see what your output is 0. Kanjalo kanjalo. Lana, it's a bit wishy-washy. So 1, it's important when you make this graph or this to make sure ukuthi ziyahambelana so that you are not confused, the person reading it is not confused. Now, like I said, ukuthi these then become our coordinates. So -3 is to 4, -2 is to 3, -1 is to 2, 0 is to 1, 1 is to 0, 2 is to -1, 3 is to -2. So those become the coordinates that we plot this graph. Like I said, because it's negative, oh Jehovah, because seriously, because the graph, the gradient is negative, because the graph is negative, our graph, which is a straight line graph, goes from our left hand side to our right hand side. So ngamanye amagama, if bakunikeze this graph and they say to you, find the gradient of that line, you know before uyenza ukuthi it must be negative if it slopes from left to right. Uyazazela nje ukuthi okay, i negative. Manje ke njengoba ngishilo, how do you funda lama points? Mayiphezulu kuka x isho ukuthi y u 0. So that point is 1 is to 0. That is your x-intercept. Mayiphezulu kuka y kusho ukuthi x u 0. That point is 0 is to 1. And then that point is 2 is to -1. That point is 3 is to -2. That point is -1 is to 2. That point is -2 is to 3. And that point is -3 is to 4. So that is how, when you are given rules or an equation, this is for a straight line graph, that is how you then interpret it from what it is here to putting inputs, which are the x values, in order for you to get your output. And then with that you can make coordinates like so. For example, that coordinate, that point elapayana ilama coordinates la. From you having made ama coordinates, you can then go straight and draw your graph, or you can opt to do it this way, where your rule is in the middle, your x-intercepts are on your left, which are the inputs, your y-intercepts are on your right, which are your outputs. In fact, even here you can make your coordinates. In this regard, a +3 is to 4 naya, The 2 is to 3, 1 is to 2, 0 is to 1. Nakhona la uyakwazi ukuthi uzenzele ama-coordinates wakho. So encwadini in grade 9 they teach you both that and that method, and you are expected to know that and then draw the graph. But I'm saying when you have the rule, you can do that or do that. Noma ngabe yiphi indlela oyikhethile uyakwazi ukuthi uplote. It's called plotting your graph using the coordinates ozobe sowuziyenzile. This is called a Cartesian plane. This is your x values, positive x values. Those are the negative x values. We've learned about integers. So here we're using integers. And then these are your y values. Phezulu from 0 gale, it's your y values. Phansi, it's your negative y values. So these arrows, ozozibona lana, the arrow there, the arrow there, arrow there, and indicate ukuthi ama numbers wakho ayaqhubeka. But what's most important also is that when you do your graph, please do arrows as well to show ukuthi i-graph yakho continues as the number continue. It doesn't mean just because wena ustope ku -3 naku 3 this side awaqhubeki ama number. This thing can go on and on. You can have -4, negative up to infinity, and nama number ngapha asaqhubeka up to infinity. Ingagcwala i-page lento la. But until you understand lento yama rules, please use this table where you start at the middle or in the middle and have 1, 2, 3 as your positive numbers, and have -1, -2, -3 as your negative numbers. Then just know which where your x is 0, the value of your y, this becomes your y-intercept, meaning ukuthi i-graph yakho iyothatha u-1. Your y-intercept, okay, let me get this guy. This is your y-intercept because you made x 0. This is your x-intercept coordinate because you made y 0. A graph yako will only touch x and y in two places. Mangithi 2 places izothatha x at -1, ithathe y at 1. Those are the only places la i-graph yakho izondlula phezulu ithinte i-Cartesian plane yakho. Ku-y ithinte ku-1, ku-x ithinte ku-1. So ngokwe-maths, that is your x-intercept and that is your y-intercept. I've taught you ukuthi uyithola kanjani i-x-intercept yakho ne-y-intercept yakho using the other method. So I thought ukuthi if siyazihlanganisa zoyi 1, 2 and the other method enginifundise yona, zizokwenza ukuthi u-understand ukuthi when you are given that bathi kuwe plotter i-graph wenza kanjani. When you are given that bathi plotter i-graph or find the output wenza kanjani. Because at grade 8 mostly you'll be given the rule and the input for you to find the output. But when you proceed at grade 9, they may give you the input and the output. You must find the rule. which is kahle kahle when they've given you the input and the output, but you find the rule, they would have given you coordinates, and you can use any two of them to find firstly the gradient of the line, and secondly to find the equation of this line. So angazi ukuthi ngizosho kangakanani ukuthi it's important to understand lokhu, and what I taught you masifunda this chapter. And okukhulu ke engizokuphinda, my phone is not focusing, ukuthi if there's a negative sign there, make sure ukuthi you do that step before uzofika la, so that you know you are not confused until ingqondo yakho iyazi ukuthi when you have a negative number there, you must put your input into a bracket, so that uyazi ukuthi before uza la, uyazi ukuthi okay, if I have a negative there and the negative there, I need to multiply the meaning is times, and mang times are in negative, ne negative by positive. Don't confuse it with when you add in negative, ne negative. When you add in negative, ne negative, ziba yi negative, but when you multiply them, a negative and a negative, they then become a positive. Ngibongile. I've learned not to give you guys a homework because it's a waste of my time. Angeke niyenze. Oqedile ukubukela le video onemibuzo ngicela angithinte. So next time ngifuna ukwenza sure ukuthi sifaka inumber laphayana, a whole number there and a whole number. Maybe it's gonna read y is equals to 2x plus 1, y is equals to negative 2x plus 1. But ultimately ngifuna nikwazi ukusebenza ngama-fractions. Sifaki fraction laphayana, sifaki fraction nalaphayana, so that nikwazi ukuthi kuma-scenarios anjalo kuhamba kanjani. For grade 10s as well, it's important ukuthi urevise this, grade 11s and grade 12s. So ngoba as you proceed ka grade, especially grade 11 and 12, yes, this may seem easy, but it becomes difficult mase bahlanganise namanye ama-graphs, whether it's exponential graphs, hyperbola graphs, parabola graphs. So your understanding of these basics ibaluleke kakhulu. Njengoba ngishilo, ngicela niyibheke, nibhekisiseni, onemibuzo ngicela ngibuze. On that note,